All right, so welcome back. Again, this is the third webinar. So if you haven't seen the first couple, they are on my YouTube and my website. So they're always there. You can watch them anytime you need to. So we're gonna basically get right into supplementation. So basing on menopause specific. And then at the end, if there's a little bit of extra time, I can dive into some other beneficial like vitamins, minerals, and foods and things like that. But we're going to dive into some of the ones that I get a lot of questions on. So let's take a look. There we go. So, quick little housekeeping overview. Again, I'm not a doctor. I am not prescribing anything. This is purely just educational. It's not medical advice. So, before you take any medications or supplements or anything new, always make sure you talk to your doctor and someone that understands your health history and what you're currently taking. We are going to talk a lot about natural supplements. Just because they're natural doesn't mean they can't counteract with other things. So it's important to understand how things work, but also if there's contraindications and be aware that what you're taking, whether you think it's related or not, it could actually affect each other. Um, and again, I'm always just trying to stay as up to date as possible with information, but there's always new research and things changing. So the best thing to do is to try to stay up to date yourself as well. But this is my current information that I have found and seen on different research articles and courses and things like that I'm taking. This will be recorded again, so it will be put on my website and my YouTube for future reference. There will be some Q&As at the end, so please just save your questions for the end or feel free to put them in the comment box and then I'll get to them at the end so we can kind of get through the whole flow. And then maybe I'll answer the question during the webinar before we get there. You can stay posted to any future webinars and workshops and any kind of fun events, which I do have some big news on that later, by emailing info@fitnesscoaching.ca. And I can add you to my email list so that you stay up to date with everything. So again, a little bit about me. My name is Nikki Hamonsick. I have my fitness health promotion diploma. I got my CSAP CPT from that. So Canadian Society of Exercise Physiology. That's my personal training certificate. I switched to NASM a few years back because it's a little more internationally known. I also have my precision nutrition level 2. Basically, I got in the industry about 2009. I grew up playing competitive sports and just had that passion for fitness and the human body and what it does. Um, Over the years, I've worked a lot with like diverse populations, and I just really, over the last few years, became very passionate about women's health and menopause, perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, all in the same umbrella there, because it is just now coming out with all this research and new information. So we're finally getting the tools and information that we need as females to get through this journey and to understand it better, understand what's going on and how we can alleviate some of the negative side effects and symptoms that we might be experiencing. Um, Always taking new certifications is part of the prerequisite to stay certified. So always doing new courses. And I just really have a passion for learning and staying up to date. So I'm always taking new courses, expanding my knowledge, and I'm just really driven with the quality of life and overall preventative care. I won't dive into it too much, but basically, our healthcare system is there for when we're sick, but we have to advocate for ourselves and we have to be preventative to optimize our health and well being. So, again, some of the supplements we're going to be talking about today is protein, creatine, collagen, and adaptogens. Specifically, I'm touching on ones that I get a lot of questions on. There's obviously so much more out there, but these are some really key ones that can be very beneficial for potentially some of the symptoms you might be experiencing or anything you want to prevent down the road. This is a good place to start. So some things we need to consider. When we're going through menopause, our body's changing. And without getting into a lot of the sciencey stuff that I've touched on in my previous webinars, Cole's notes, we need more protein. We need more protein than we used to, not just because we don't absorb things as easily, but we don't have the anabolic response to exercise and stuff that we used to. We have more inflammation in our body. higher cortisol levels, changing hormones. So they're a little volatile and there's no pattern anymore. Poor sleep quality. So there's a lot of factors as to why we might be looking for a supplement. So it's important to understand what you're trying to get out of a supplement to find the right one. And if there's multiple things, there might be a supplement or adaptogen or some kind of remedy that can do multiple things. So as you're listening, stay tuned for things that might stand out in that aspect when we're talking about the symptoms that it can help with. Protein. This is a big one. This is important, but I also feel like a lot of you have probably heard a lot of these things. So I'm just going to dive into this and go through this one fairly fast. We all know what protein is and pretty much what it means and what it needs, why we need it, sorry. Um, so in perimenopause, postmenopause, the only two things that can contribute to getting an anabolic response, so meaning building that lean muscle, we need that. Exercise stress and protein dosing. Those are the only two ways that we're going to get that anabolic response that we need in order to maintain our body composition, our basal metabolic rate, our strength, our bone density. It's just really, really important. So when people are talking about building lean mass, lean body mass, however they say it, muscle, that's why it's important. It's not just for building muscles to look good. There's a lot of aspects that's playing to for optimal health and functionality for longer. Um, so the again, exercise stress and protein dosing is important. So the workouts that we do are important. So that was in previous webinar if you want to check it out. And protein dosing meaning how much do we need and when do we need it for that timing, because timing does matter. Post-workout, our dose should be approximately 40 grams of whey protein isolate or 6 grams of essential amino acids, where 3 of those grams is from leucine. Leucine is one of the most important amino acids for an anabolic response, so for building lean muscle. How much is too much? Now, this has always been kind of a out there topic and people always talk about it and like, oh, you can't digest this much and blah, blah, blah. Every single person is different. So there is no black and white answer on how much is too much. However, active people can take up to 3.7 grams per kilogram of body weight with no adverse effects on their kidneys, bones, or cell proliferation. So when cells are multiplying too fast, there's no adverse effects. And 3.7 grams per kilogram is quite a bit. So if we were to do the math on your body weight, so let's say you're 140 pounds, you divide it by 2.2 to get your body weight in kilograms. So let's say you're 140 pounds, that would be 63.63 kilograms. If you times that by 3.7, that's 235 grams. So that's a lot of protein. So that's obviously much higher than we potentially need. But that's just to put something in perspective in terms of like how much is too much. So I wouldn't worry about having too much. I would worry about how can you get more into your day, because that's usually where a lot of us are lacking is how much protein we're getting in. Like I said, our bone density, our muscle, our strength, our basal metabolic rate, so our calorie burn doing nothing, all of these things are a factor. And if you go back to my training webinar, the aspect of strength training on the brain is also very important. So when we're talking about protein, it is very important for all aspects of our health, wellness, and functionality for longer. We want to optimize our quality of life. Not all powders are the same. So you'll notice I did say whey protein isolate because it is one of the most bioavailable, meaning our body utilizes more of it. So I will show you a chart in a second that's going to dive into comparing some proteins and why they're different, how they're different, and things to look for. Obviously, this is going to be a bit of an overview with not to replace food. So a supplement is exactly that. It is to supplement what you can't get from food. So please keep that in mind. It's always best to try to get things from your food first And then what you can't get from your food or where you're lacking, that's where supplementation should come in. So try to adjust the food first because it's always going to be the most bioavailable. Body knows how to use it. And there's usually additional nutrients in food. It's never just one thing that's good in the food. There's usually multiple nutrients. So you're actually getting more benefit from having real food as opposed to a supplement. Uh, often filled, so yeah, supplements are often filled with cheaper ingredients, sugars, chemicals, lack of nutrients from real food, so they're less bioavailable. And again, it's not real food we're getting in our body, so it just doesn't have the same nutrients, and our body doesn't always know what to do with it. Some notes on dosing. So, how can we dose effectively? A good way to break it down throughout the day. So we want to have consistent protein throughout the day. We don't want to try to just have it on like one meal. That we need it throughout the day, a little bit more throughout the day. Aiming for 1.8 to 2.3 grams per kilogram a day. So splitting it up is best because we can absorb it, use it, absorb it, use it. It's a little bit more effective if we break it up throughout the day. So if you were to break it up, usually about 0.4 grams per kilogram per meal, 10 to 15 grams per snacks. And then if you're breaking that up for the day, you should be able to get your protein in for the day. Post exercise. So this is the really important time that we must get it in soon after the workout. I'm talking within an hour or less of your workout is really important to get your protein and your carbs. But we're talking about protein. So protein, 35 to 40 grams is ideal post-workout. And we want to make sure it's leucine rich. 3 to 3.5 grams of leucine in that serving. So here are some examples of leucine rich foods. We have chicken breast, whey protein isolate, beef, tuna, eggs, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, soy protein, lentils, almonds. Those are also in order of how much leucine they have. So your chicken breast, your whey protein, your basically meat proteins and whey are going to be the highest leucine per serving. And then as we get kind of further away, dairy is usually in the middle. And then your like nuts, seeds, legume kind of things are going to be the lowest in leucine. But this is a good understanding of how you can blend foods and get a variety of protein and a variety of nutrients. So this is the chart I was talking about. Without being too overwhelmed, I'm just going to point out a couple things that I'm talking about on this chart. So the one thing we're looking at is protein per 100 grams of powder. So in 100 grams of powder, how much is actually protein? Because sometimes there's other nutrients or other ingredients in there. So it's not necessarily 100% protein because there's naturally going to be some other things. BV is your bioavailability. So like I was saying, our ability to use those nutrients. And then the amount of leucine per serving. In this, the serving is 2.7 grams. So what you're going to see is how many grams the scoop is or the serving is in order to get 2.7 grams of leucine. And then protein per serving is also. So if we're looking at egg white for bioavailability, that's 100%. So the egg white is kind of a bit of a benchmark or a gold standard to kind of like how we can get protein in per serving because egg whites is basically just protein. There's not much else in that. So it's a really good indicator and it's a real food. So again, when we're talking gold standard or kind of what we're reaching for, that would be a good. Whey protein isolate or hydrolysate are your purest forms of protein. So in each scoop, you're going to get more protein. When we get into the concentrate, it's less protein per scoop because there's other things in it. And there might be some carbs, there might be some fats, a little bit of other things in there. So when we're looking at the leucine, you'll also see that for 2.7 grams of leucine, how many grams you're getting for that 2.7. So 25 grams to get 2.7 as opposed to 39 grams is actually slightly better. So you're getting a little bit more leucine from the whey than you would from the egg white, if that makes sense, hopefully. And then you're looking at your vegan sources or plant-based proteins. Usually the bioavailability is much lower. So again, the whey protein, isolate, and hydrolysis are broken down to be absorbed quite easily. And that's why they're actually higher than 100 on the bioavailability because we're comparing it to egg white. So it's slightly better in absorbing. And then we have these ones. So hemp 87, that's not horrible. Rice protein, not horrible. 65, 77, those are pretty low for bioavailability. However, if you're able to mix some of these or get a blend, that can help boost your bioavailability because you're also going to get more leucine per scoop in some of the opposites. So 87 is the most bioavailability for the hemp, but you need 54 grams in order to get that 2.7 grams of leucine, where your pea protein, you only need 37 grams to get that leucine. So there's more leucine in your pea protein, but your hemp is more bioavailable. Same thing with the rice to that. So that's where with vegan protein, sometimes getting a blend is more beneficial because you're going to get a little bit of everything. So the things that are lower and higher are maybe opposite. So we can combine them to make them a little more well-rounded to get more protein, more per scoop, more bioavailability, and more leucine. Those are the three kind of key factors we're looking at with proteins is how much am I actually getting out of it? How much am I using out of it? And how much leucine is in the scoop? So three big factors there. The other thing that's really important before I move on to the vegan things is when you're looking at supplements, checking the labels and maybe doing a little bit of research on companies. Are they third party tested? This is a blanket statement for all supplements. For me, I always want to make sure that they're third party tested. If their testing is based on someone that's funding the supplement or the supplement company is funding the research, it might be a little biased. So that's important that you have a third party that's objective to the results. But yeah, so talking about vegan proteins here for a sec again, these are some foods that we can balance. Again, different amino blends. So things that are lower in lysine might be higher in methionine. So we can again, combine things to get more complete amino acids, because that's usually where people sometimes argue plant proteins are not as effective because they don't have complete amino profiles, which it might be true, but they're still usable protein. We still use it. It is missing some aminos, but you can blend things to get to complement each other. So quinoa you'll always hear is complete because it's complete with lysine and methionine. Tofu and tempeh and edamame gives you a nice little blend of all of them. Lentils and brown rice will give you the blend of both. Chickpeas and sourdough bread gives you a bit of both. So again, there's a lot of different nutrients that are doing different things. On this side, you'll see some additional benefits. So whether there's high in fiber, magnesium, antioxidants, this one has calcium, iron, anti-inflammatories, supports gut health here with the lentils and the brown rice, high in fiber. So there's often, again, when we're talking about real food, you're going to get more nutrients. Always go for real food. What you can't get from your food, then you can supplement. And also for convenience factors. Sometimes making a quick shake is just easy and convenient, and it's there. We don't necessarily have food everywhere we go, or we might not have access to it for whatever reason. So supplements do have a purpose, but understanding the food is the number one choice. Okay. Moving on to creatine. So creatine again is a big one, and there's a lot more research coming to play. So people are talking about it more. There's more research coming out that it's not just good for our muscles, it's also good for our brain. And this is becoming a really hot topic because the benefits are so much better than we thought they were for creatine. So what is creatine? It's a natural compound of amino acids in the body that's providing energy for the brain and the muscles. So ATP being replenished, so it regenerates the phosphocreatine in the body. ATP, adenosine triphosphate, is our currency for energy. So what creatine does is it helps more of that energy for our cells in our brains, in our muscles, in our brain. Again, it's one of the longest studied supplement. And again, a lot of this new research is absolutely fascinating. it started out as a bodybuilding, so for people to get bigger muscles, and that was pretty much the main thing people thought it was for. But now we're realizing for women in menopause, there's significant benefits. And as females, we don't have the same amount of stored creatine. So we actually need more creatine because we can't store as much of it. And so our stored creatine is lower. Um, some research is actually showing much higher doses than what people have been taking for the last while as well. 3 to 5 grams per day is the kind of standard for a monohydrate. Uh, there's different types of creatine. That's also a bit of a hot topic coming through is different types of creatines having different benefits on the brain or the muscles. Um, so yeah, some of the new research for a menopausal woman, we can take up to 0.3 grams per kilogram of body weight. So again, a little example there. If you're 140 pounds, 63.6 kilograms, that's 19 grams of creatine a day. So that's a lot more than the 3.3 to 5 that we're normally seeing in most supplements right now. So don't be alarmed if you start to see supplements with much higher dosing because a lot more research is backing that up from a menopause perspective, but also from a brain perspective. So it helps with building lean mass, lean muscle, strength, bone density, and brain function. Like I was saying about the females with less stored creatine, females have 70 to 80% less stores of creatine than males. And we're already starting to lose a lot of that stuff as we're getting older and into our menopausal stage. Monohydrate and hydrochloride are both effective. Neither will create a bulk effect. In order to actually get that bulk effect, people purposely are dosing it with water, carbs at the same time, post-workout, pre-workout. So different dosing protocols to get that bulk response. If you're just taking this as like a daily supplement, you'll be fine. So whether it's monohydrate or hydrochloride doesn't matter. And again, there's actually starting to come out with some different types of creatine in terms of how it's broken down, the molecular structure. So you might hear things like ester ethyl, hydrochloride, monohydrate. Those are the ones that I'm familiar with so far. But again, always growing, always new things coming out. Um, so yeah, one of the new researches I was hearing was that certain types actually cross the blood-brain barrier more effectively. So it's more effective for the brain aspect and can get in there as opposed to kind of getting shuttled to our muscles first. It's actually feeding the brain first. So really cool things coming out. Again, this was just a new thing I recently read, so I don't know much about it, but that was a really cool thing. Something to think about or even look for later, because I'm sure there will be more marketing on that soon. Uh, our brain uses more creatine during high stress states. So this is also a really cool thing that's kind of coming new in the research is supplementing during high stress or sleep deprivation states. So if you're a shift worker or you're cramming for some kind of study or exams, or just a high stress state, our brain gets depleted of our creatine stores much faster. So when we feel tired, lethargic, we get brain fog, we just can't remember things as well, or we're just kind of like unfocused and all over the place. This could also just be that our creatine stores are depleted. Again, just a stressful day can do this. Having not enough sleep can do this. So supplementing different amounts based on what your body is going through can actually be very beneficial. And this is, again, a newer research, so I don't have dosing schedules on this or how to dose accordingly, but lots of studies are saying upwards to 20 grams a day for brain health. So really cool. Collagen, this is a big one I get a lot of questions on. Basically, from early adult years, 18 to 29, we start losing collagen. Collagen is our uh, fiber structures in our body. So it could be tendons, ligaments, connective tissue through the body. hair, skin, nails, all that stuff. After 40, we are losing 1% of our collagen every year. So by the time we're 80, we have 75% less collagen than young adults, or when we did when we were in our early 20s. Um, it does not contribute to protein intake. A lot of them will kind of be marketed as collagen peptides, protein peptides. So when you see that, it will say that there's protein, but think of protein, collagen protein, almost like fiber when you're counting carbs. So fiber is not a carb that's going to be used as like energy or fuel, so it doesn't really count as like the calories. Protein, collagen is kind of similar. It's going to say there's, 5 grams or 9 grams of protein, but it's the collagen fibers. So it's more fibrous. It's not actually being utilized the way protein that we eat, like meat and other foods. It's not used the same way. So if you're counting your protein, this does not actually count towards that protein. It's being used a little differently than the other protein foods. So natural sources, again, this isn't just a supplement. There's other ways to get collagen. So lean meats, um, beef, chicken, pork, meat with connective tissue, such as like ribeye and wings. Bone broth has lots of collagen in it. Fish with bones, egg whites actually do have some collagen in it. So natural fish collagen is absorbed more efficiently. So marine sources of collagen, you'll often see when you're buying the supplement, either bovine collagen or marine collagen. Marine collagen is a little bit more bioavailable. So again, our utilization of it is a little bit differently, but they're all still effective and still beneficial. Different types that you're going to see. So there's type 1, type 2, and type 3 collagen. Type 1 and 3 are the ones you're going to see more often. Those are the collagen peptides. It's the short chain amino acids. They're typically from bovine, so cows. It can also be marine, which is absorbed easier. So it's going to type 1 and 3 are those. Help with ligaments, tendons, hair, nails. Type 2, which is usually sourced from chicken, sorry, is what we call native. This is specific to cartilage only, and I'll explain that in a second. So native versus hydrolyzed. Native is your whole collagen molecule, so it's too large to get absorbed through the intestinal wall. This is beneficial for preventing cartilage destruction, so breakdown of cartilage, and prevents type 2 collagen breakdown. So, and it only takes a small amount to reduce the inflammation and the degradation in the joints. So this is really good if you have any kind of like knee replacement surgery or cartilage damage, osteoarthritis, anything that is breaking down cartilage in the joints. This is a really good one to prevent that. It's not going to rebuild it necessarily, but it can help the preventing the destruction, the degradation. And then you have your hydrolyzed, which is also known as your collagen peptides. So again, they'll usually say that there's protein, shorter chain amino acids derived from the whole collagen. So it's a smaller breakdown, meaning it can pass that intestinal wall, and they're shuttled to where the tissue needs them. So it's going to shuttle the collagen to wherever the peptides need to rebuild, wherever there's damaged tissue or where there needs to be repair to your skin, bone, joints, or the cells can actually use the aminos for energy as well. So for a more generalized approach, the type 1 and 3, your collagen peptides are usually going to be the ones you go for. But if you specifically are looking for cartilage protection, then native type 2 is actually what you're going to want. Adaptogens. So this is a big one. This is often not talked about a lot, and a lot of people are not aware of some of these. And these are just a few popular ones, but there is a lot of adaptogens out there. So, what is an adaptogen? It is a botanical, so it's a natural um, plant of some kind, usually. It's naturally grown from the earth. So that's why when people say like a natural supplement, that's what we're talking about. Um, Specifically, adaptogens help our resistance to stress, whether it's physical, chemical, or biological. It helps us adapt to those things. What do they do? So they target our HPA axis, so hypothalamic, pituitary, adrenal axis. This is our different places. So hypothalamus in the brain, pituitary gland in the brain, and adrenal gland. Um, all of those are our body's response to stress, and our body adapts to things based on the feedback those places get. So that's why it's affecting specifically the HPA axis. Um, and it regulates the key mediators in the stress response common to all cells. So when we're talking to stress response, so heat shock protein, so when hot cold adjustments our body has to adjust to, nitric oxide if we need more blood flow to certain areas, cortisol and glucocorticoid receptors, so your stress, your fight or flight response, how our body adapts to like, oh, do I need to run away from something? That's the like cortisol. HPA axis. So again, it's the connection between the hypothalamus, pituitary gland, and adrenal gland. All those stress response organs. It's the main neuroendocrine stress response system. So it's like a little connector between all three that we can manage our reactions to stress, regulate our vital body processes, including digestion, immune responses, mood, and energy. So it's controlling the production and release of cortisol. It works with receptors in the cells to moderate our responses to stress. So whether we need to increase or decrease something, it's responding to an external stressor of some kind. It compounds work with the HPA axis to balance the systems. So kind of regulating the output. Interacts with immune neuroendocrine system. So again, that's kind of all the same similar things. Helps to regulate the use of energy and maintain strong immunity. So our immune system is also involved in this HPA axis. Generalized outcomes from um, the botanicals, so adaptogens, interact with the immunoneuroendocrine system based on what it does in the body. So sometimes this can actually be talking about like your T helper cells, your natural killer cells to fight off viruses or bacteria and things like that, and some antioxidant things. But we'll talk about specific ones where that comes into play. Generalized outcomes. So improved mood, performance, whether it's daily performance or fitness performance. So whether it's just having energy throughout the day or whether it's improving our workout performance, focus, reduction of hormonal mediated symptoms. So basically when we're going through menopause, puberty, PCOS, any kind of flux or influx or changing of hormones, it can help kind of moderate the effects of the crazy volatile fluctuations. We can kind of bring these big fluctuations a little smaller fluctuations, if that makes sense. So the adaptogens that we're going to be discussing, we have some that are a little more stimulatory. So they help with your stress and fatigue. Schisandra chinesis, rhodiola rosea, maca, specifically the red Peruvian, Siberian ginseng, specifically not the Panax ginseng. They are different. And Panax ginseng is often what you'll get with over-the-counter supplements. So it's really important that you look specifically for Siberian ginseng. It is a little harder to find for that reason. The calming ones that are a little better for anxiety, stress, and immunity, we're looking at things like ashwagandha, holy basil, which is also called tulsi. And then we have mushroom adaptogens. So again, they're still kind of botanicals, but they're mushrooms specifically. So reishi, cordyceps, chaga, and lion's mane. They all have some different benefits. So they work well together. Also, I don't think I mentioned that, but all of these adaptogens you can use together. You can combine them. but be aware of any contraindications that sometimes they're gonna maybe lower blood pressure or increase like within the blood, or any kind of effects like that. If you're taking more of them, it's going to increase those effects. So be aware of what they're doing in the body. So reishi specifically is going to help with like your immunity, has some anti-fatigue effects, increase the estrogen receptor sensitivity, reducing, so therefore reducing things like hot flashes, improve focus and concentration. Going back to the estrogen receptors, as we are going into menopause, our estrogen receptors are becoming less in total number, but also in sensitivity. So, how well they're actually functioning is also depleting, as well as the number of receptors we have in our body. And every single system in our body has estrogen receptors. And that is why when we start to lose estrogen or switch to the non-dominant estrogen, our body has a hard time with a lot of things. Cordyceps is great for increasing sex hormones. It's an immunostimulant, so it helps with your immune system. That's where I'm talking about your T helper cells and your natural killer cells to be more effective or more of them. Improve mood, so great for anxiety, depression, and focus. Improve athletic performance through vasodilation and ATP level increase. So vasodilation is improving blood flow, and ATP is what we're talking about with the creatine, the energy in our cells. So being able to do more of things. Chaga works like an aspirin. So it's really good for anti-inflammatory aspect. However, if we're talking about someone that has like an autoimmune disease or a blood thinner, we have to be aware of the effects because it's a very similar effect and it actually has that ASA ingredient in it. So if you're allergic to aspirin, I also would not recommend chaga. Um, Lion's mane is neuroprotective, so it's helping prevent the degradation of our uh, brain, improve nerve growth, improve cognitive function, so memory, focus, mood, and delays the progression of neurodegenerative diseases like your ALS and Parkinson's. So going into the start of the adaptogens here. So Schisandrogenesis, this is a weak phytoestrogen that increases vasodilation and levels out estrogen fluctuation. So again, when our estrogen is getting a little volatile all over, we have high one day, low one day, high one day, low one day, all over the place, we're getting more things like hot flashes. Any kind of vasomotor symptoms is going to be good for this one. Promotes oxidation in the mitochondria, our cells, powerhouses. Therefore, it increases our aerobic capacity. So, being able to do more work and get blood flow to our cells faster. It stimulates our central nervous system, so improves our cognition, brain fog, memory, focus, etc. Anything to do with the brain. Dosing and consideration. So making sure to look for organic Schisandra extract. It can be a powder, a liquid, pill, doesn't matter. Again, this is where it matters what your symptoms are that you're trying to mitigate or help. Vasomotor symptoms, the dosing for that would be 13.5 milligrams per kilogram of body weight per day. If you're looking more for the mental and physical performance, we're going to be looking at about 500 milligrams to 2 grams per day. So much different. So start low and gradually increase for the higher dosing. We want to like week by week slowly increase it, starting with the lower dose. But as you see, that can be two very different dosings. Taking in the morning as it is a stimulatory adaptogen, so it can kind of give you like a boost. Take for about 2 to 3 weeks before you actually notice some changes. So you might not notice changes right away. You might notice some things about a week later, but this, again, like most adaptogens, it takes a while to change our stress responses because it's adapting how our body is responding to the stresses. So it can take some time. Usually adaptogens do take, at least a week or more to start to see the effects. And sometimes they compound. So you have to take them longer in order to get the results you're looking for. Rhodiola rosea. So this one is more in the brain component of things. Prevents the degradation of neurotransmitters. So that's like our serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, a lot of the mood hormones in our brain. So it improves brain function and mood, regulates our stress hormones. So while it's also boosting energy metabolism in the brain and mitochondria, this is why it can help with energy. It can also help with sleep and brain function. It is a SERM, so selective estrogen reuptake modulator. So moderating that estrogen. It prevents or delays menopause-related cognitive, psychological, and cardiovascular conditions. So it's neuroprotective, protecting a lot of the brain aspect, heart health, cognition, mood. So it can have a lot of those effects. Again, anything it affects in the body, it's starting from in the brain. Dosing considerations here, making sure to look for standardized rhodiola root extract. And we want the 1-to-3 ratio. So 1% salidroside, 3% rosavin. So make sure you're looking for that 1-to-3 ratio. The smallest effective dose, meaning the minimum people have taken to see results, is 150 milligrams 2 times a day. Most supplements I've seen actually come at 200 milligrams for the dose, and you want to take it twice a day. So morning and afternoon, not at night, because it might give you a stimulatory response. Red maca. So again, we want Peruvian. I'll say that later. So moderates, this is a lot to do with your hormones here. Moderates estrogen metabolism. So it helps with high estrogen symptoms such as breast tenderness and heavy bleeding. It's an anti-inflammatory, helps with pain and lingering injuries. Again, we have a lot more inflammation in our body when we're getting through menopause. So finding things that are anti-inflammatory are going to be very beneficial for those chronic injuries that just can't seem to heal, or just aches and pains that you might be getting. It regulates our adrenal and thyroid function. So this can help with your energy and your body composition, can improve your mood and anxiety. In early perimenopause, it can be as effective as MHT for hot flashes and weight gain. So again, thinking of a preventative aspect, it's actually more effective if taken earlier for those things. Dosing, again, we want to look for red Peruvian maca root, specifically red maca. You'll also see there's other options out there. Again, 2 different dosing for 2 different symptoms here. Vasomotor and hormonal symptoms, we're looking at 2 grams a day. Mood and psychological symptoms, we're looking at 3.5 grams per day. This one will counteract with thyroid medications. So again, being aware of how it's working. And it is an anti-inflammatory as well. So be aware if you're taking any other anti-inflammatories, we don't want to be double dosing. Siberian ginseng. So this stimulates the central nervous system, again, improving that physical and cognitive performance, because if the brain is firing on all cylinders, then our body is going to be able to function and keep up. It supports the adrenals by increasing T helper cells and natural killer activity. So these are the cells that are fighting viruses or anything foreign in our body. So it can help with fatigue in that aspect. Binds to estrogen receptor sites. So again, talking about the estrogen receptors not being as sensitive as they used to be. Therefore, it can boost our estrogen effects or things that affect estrogen. It can affect, oh my God, it can boost the estrogen. Let's just keep it at that. It's late in the day for me. Modulates awakening cortisol. So when we first wake up, we get a cortisol spike. Sometimes it's too high, sometimes it's too low. So this helps to balance cortisol. If you're tired all the time, we might have something called chronic fatigue syndrome. This is a really good one for that. If you're constantly under stress, this can again help to regulate our response to it. When we're constantly running on cortisol, our adrenals can fatigue. If we're constantly go, 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 if we're in that fight or flight response too often for too long, our adrenals get fatigued because it can only produce that adrenaline, that fight or flight response so much. So that's why sometimes when we're under high stress for a long period of time, we feel that fatigue. And after that stress is gone, the fatigue can linger for quite some time because our adrenals had to work so hard. The effects that cortisol has on our other body systems can affect it for long after that stress is gone. So keep that in mind. Works with the neuroendocrine immune complex. So again, this is talking about your stress, your anxiety, your brain fog, and stress-induced chronic fatigue. Dosing considerations, we want to make sure to look for standardized Siberian ginseng root extract. So again, making sure it's Siberian ginseng, not Panax ginseng. 9 times out of 10, if you go into a supplement store, it's probably going to be a Panax ginseng. And we want to look for the ingredient. So the active components here is 0.5% eleuteroside E and 0.3 eleuteroside B. So the active components in it, that's what we're looking at. If you're looking just for general health, 300 milligrams per day is good. If you have that chronic fatigue or you're just tired all the time, then 500 milligrams twice a day. For this one, we do want to make sure that we're cycling. So 8 weeks on, 2 to 3 weeks off. If the reason cycling is important, because with adaptogens, it's again adapting to the stress responses. We don't want it to kind of plateau or get used to it. So when we stop taking it and then take it again, it helps kind of revamp and rejig everything. Ashwagandha increases our DHEA and testosterone, reduces our cortisol and estradiol. So it's moderating some of those. Moderates the HPA axis. So again, when we're talking about our response to stress specifically, so reducing the stress responses, anxiety. Sometimes we have that tired but wired feeling where it's like, you're tired, you want to go sleep, but then you can't go to sleep. Nothing shuts off. Improves body's response to temperature changes. So again, with the vasomotor symptoms, so hot flushes, things like that, our body gets better to adjusting the temperatures. Anti-inflammatory, again, so we have that pain, chronic injuries, moderates our blood glucose. So it improves body composition because if we have some insulin sensitivity, which will often start to happen when we get into menopause, we're going to be better at moderating that blood sugars. Dosing considerations, again, standardized ashwagandha root extract with 3% or more with phenolides. So again, what are we looking for symptom-wise? Stress, anxiety, anti-inflammatory, we want at least 250 milligrams per day. Again, talking about that minimum effective dose, meaning we can take more. If we're not getting the results from that, you can take a little more. Vasomotor symptoms, glucose control, and body composition. 300 milligrams per day. Again, counteract with thyroid medications, and it does have a blood thinning aspect like aspirin, so we don't want to take them together, or if you're sensitive to aspirin. Holy basil, or also known as Tulsi, reduces cortisol. So it's going to improve that stress and anxiety. Anti-inflammatory, can help with immunity, fevers, coughs, allergy, asthma, digestive disorders. So it's very anti-inflammatory from all levels in the body, used to improve energy and fatigue. So looking for organic holy basil leaf extract. That's the Latin word for it. You might see sometimes on labels for things. Again, looking at what are we looking to mitigate in terms of our symptoms. So anxiety, depression, looking for 500 milligrams 2 times a day. If you're looking to reduce stress, 300 milligrams 2 times a day. With this one, we want to do 30 days on and then take a few days off. So again, cycling it, sleep, memory, chronic fatigue, we're going to take much more. So 400 milligrams in the morning, 800 milligrams at night, different cycle here, 6 weeks on, a few days off. This can actually inhibit ovulation. So if you are not quite fully into menopause and you maybe are still trying to have children, be aware that this anti-inflammatory can actually change how our body reacts. So with ovulating, if you take very or immunity, sorry, with the it can affect ovulation. Let's just stop there. Reishi. So now we're getting into our mushroom adaptogens. I don't want to go a little faster, so I hopefully don't brain fog all of this. Reishi, increase immunity, improve energy. It increases the sensitivity on the estrogen receptors. So vasomotor symptoms or other estrogen related things. Again, talking about those receptors, like I said earlier, we're not just losing receptors, we're also losing our sensitivity. So this is going to help boost that so that whatever estrogen we are still getting is a little more effective. Increase focus and decrease anxiety. Dosing, we want to look at 20% beta glucans. So again, if it has anything like that you can see, cool. Often if, depending on what the supplement is or where you're getting it, it might not have that. So don't worry. Max 12 weeks on and then 4 weeks off. So 1,500 to 2,000 milligrams a day. So either 1.5, sorry, there's a little uh, dosing thing. So it's 1.5 to 2 grams per day. Um, not milligrams, it's supposed to be milligrams there. Lowers blood pressure, so it can thin the blood, so be aware of that. Um, Possibly allergic reactions to this one. So dry mouth, itchy mouth, throat, GI distress may cause insomnia or nausea. So starting with a little bit of dosing, see how you feel with it. And if you feel good, lots of benefits. Cordyceps, increase immunity, increases production of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So again, these are three really important ones that we do start to lose as we get into our menopause stage, improves mood and focus, increases ATP levels and vasodilation. So again, talking about the creatine and what it does for you, this also has a similar effect as well as vasodilation, so more blood flow to improve athletic performance. Looking for C, synesis, and labeled yeast free. When you're looking at labels, if it has the specifics on it. Again, a little typo here. So 1,000 to 3,000 milligrams per day or 1 to 3 grams per day. With this one, you want to start low and gradually increase. So starting from like a gram and then coming up a little bit more as you go. The larger dose is going to be more for that athletic performance. The lower doses are still going to help with the immunity, the production of those hormones, and mood focus. Lion's mane. So this one's really good for that, again, neurological aspect. Improve cognitive function. So it's neuroprotective, anxiety, depression, memory, delays progression of neurodegenerative diseases as well, like earlier. So ALS, Parkinson's, and helps manage nerve injuries. Antioxidant and anti-inflammatory. You want to look for the H. aronesis or Yamabushitaki, Japanese extracts. And you want a 10-to-1 ratio of the extracts, 30% being a polysaccharide. Polysaccharide is actually the breakdown of fats and carbs. So looking at the 30% polysaccharide, this one is correct. So 500 to 1,000 milligrams, 1 to 3 times a day. So either 0.5 to 1 gram, 1 to 3 times a day. You can take this more often. Chaga. So this one's a very powerful anti-inflammatory. It has the same active ingredient as aspirin. So it has that ASA. So if you're allergic to ASA, you should not take this. Improve immunity. So it stimulates that white blood cell production. And this is actually one of the reasons why if you have an autoimmune disease, it can actually worsen your symptoms because it's trying to regulate something that your body's also trying to regulate, and it can kind of counteract each other a little bit, but it's a very strong antioxidant. Dosing considerations looking for wild harvest and organic, 8% beta D glucans. It can be a tea, it can be a powder or a capsule. Again, I got the milligrams here correct. So 250 to 500 milligrams, 2 to 3 times a day. So of all the dosing, this is actually one of the lower doses. And again, it's very strong with the anti-inflammatory aspect. So you don't want to take this too often or for too long. Only during inflammation stages. So when you have a lot of inflammation, that's time to take it up to 8 weeks. No, you shouldn't take it for more than that. Um, do not take if you're allergic to ASA or aspirin. It counteracts with blood thinners. So if you're on a blood thinner, don't take it. And it can worsen autoimmune disorder. So if you do have an autoimmune disorder, because of the stimulation of the white blood cells, it can actually uh, worsen your symptoms. And all right, so Q&As, also some big news coming up. So this fall, November 15th, we officially have a date set. So stay tuned for more information. But we will be hosting Menopause Unfiltered. So this is going to be a half-day event for you ladies, all around menopause. And there's going to be expert panels. There's going to be awesome local vendors. There's going to be a buffet brunch, coffee, tea, and if you want, there will be an extra option for a mocktail hour to get into some adaptogens that we just discussed today, and just to network and mingle and find that community and support. So it's a really awesome event that's coming up. So stay tuned. It will be at Jackson Hall at Town Brewery, downtown Whitby, where Brock Street Brewery used to be, if you're familiar. And if you want to stay up to date with all the events, you can register for my newsletters. info@fitnesscoaching.ca there. Just shoot me an email if you want to be added to the list. And this way you will know when any new events are coming up. Thanks so much for your time today, and stay tuned for more stuff.